Jazz at Rockets tonight. That game is going to tip right about 6 o'clock, and I actually think this is going to be an interesting game. Jazz are a 9-point home or a road favorite. The number's 222.5.
Yeah.
So you're thinking each team's going to score a minimum of 111 points. And I'm just curious, on a surface level, are the Utah Jazz as good as they were last year this year? Because we know that last year the Jazz finished with the best record in the NBA, even though multiple stars and, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley were injured for long stretches of the season. The Jazz still finished with the best record in the NBA. But this year, something feels a little different. The Jazz are off to a great start. They're undefeated so far. This will be, game 4 for the Jazz tonight against an upstart, young and improving Houston Rocket team.
Rocket.
I think this is going to be a real challenge tonight. So, Jake, point blank, are the Utah Jazz better this year than they were last year?
Yeah, I think they are a little bit better this year than they were last year. I do think that they have yet to play their best basketball, which is kind of saying something considering they haven't lost yet. But yeah, I do think they're a better overall team this year than they were last year. I think you look at the depth that they have, there's no question it's better, right? You just look at the Derek Favors for Hassan Whiteside, switch that they made right there. You're already a better team. So we're not even accounting for, the Jared Butler draft pick and some of the other things like, bringing in Eric Pascal. Like you're definitely better, but it'll be interesting to see as this team kind of comes together and, we get to like game 20, game 25, game 30, you really start to get into the meat of this schedule, what this team turns into. I mean, like tonight is a great example. This team tonight is going to have to shoot the 3 ball well to beat this Rocket team. And I'm not sitting here saying that the Rockets are a better team because they're not. But what I'm most concerned about is the athleticism the Rockets bring to the floor. And this really kind of plays back to this question of, are the Jazz better this year than they were last year? Well, from a roster perspective, they are. However, in the athleticism category, they are not. In fact, I would tell you they probably are a little bit worse than they were last year because everyone's a year older. So tonight, when you're playing a extremely athletic Houston Rockets team with guys like Jalen Green who are looking to end you at the rim, who are looking to dunk on you, who are looking to have a track meet, that's not the best setup for the Jazz. So I'll be really, really curious to see tonight what the Jazz try to do. I would assume that they're not going to want to get out in transition against this Rocket team. I would assume that they're going to want to play a slower, more methodical game, which would make perfect sense. And if they do that, I think they'll win the game. But when I look at last year versus this year, I think the Jazz are a better team overall. But that athleticism piece still really is lacking, and that's going to be concerning when you play teams like the Kings and the Rockets and all these young, upstart, athletic teams. So that's something to watch for tonight.
Yeah, and I think you have a lot of young upstart teams. And the interesting thing that I think we've seen so far this year, and I think this very much applies to the Jazz, is that you don't know who the elite of the elite are yet. Like I think when we look at the Lakers, Brooklyn, Phoenix, we haven't seen very many teams playing their best basketball, and I don't know why that is. In the very secretive lockdown pre-show meeting here on the Monty Show.
Behind the scenes.
Classified. Special shit. You had some I thought you had an interesting point about that even though this season the NBA is back on schedule, there are very many teams and very many guys who simply are not in their routine or back on schedule.
Yeah, well, because I think it's been an interesting couple of seasons, and those seasons tend to add up. So I mean, you look at the bubble season, number one, and then you look at how short the offseason was after that bubble season. So like the Jazz, if we all remember, had played the Nuggets and got eliminated. And then you have a really short offseason after the bubble, and you head right into the next season. So right there, your timing's already off. You only had a couple of weeks off there. Then last season, you play a long season. You get to the second round, like you're grinding it out, and you get eliminated. And then what do we have? We're now getting back on track with regular NBA timing, but still, it's not like you had a really long, methodical offseason like you typically would. You had a 6 to 8 week offseason, which really is not that much time when you think about it, especially in an Olympic year. So then you take all those things, you add those up, and you start to look at guys like, Dame, guy like other like there's a bunch of guys around the league. Like I look at the Lakers squad, having some trouble right now. I look at James Harden, who's really struggling. Like you have stars in the league who are struggling, and that's because of the Olympic year and the difference in offseason timing. So if you had an injury, like let's say James Harden, you're spending 5 weeks, getting your hamstring right, Mike Conley. It's going to take you probably 10 to 15 games to get your feet back under you. So I think that's what we're seeing right now. But that said, with the Utah Jazz, I still think they're playing solid basketball, and they still have better basketball yet to be played. That's the thing. They still have not played their best basketball yet. So yeah, I think the timing of these off seasons has not been ideal, and I think we're just seeing that right now. So I guess the real takeaway is what you see right now won't define what this season will hold at the end of the year. This is a lot of teams just kind of getting warmed up, I guess.
Well, and I think the thing that comes to mind for me, and I guess this is how I would wrap this question before we get into this game tonight, but the thing that comes to mind for me is that you have Donovan Mitchell not nearly playing his best basketball. I mean, I think you're seeing a guy who's not nearly 100% of his game anyway. Physically, he looks great. But I think it just takes time to get back to being who you are. And James Harden is openly talking about this. Like with his hamstring, he had multiple grade 2 hamstring injuries last year. So he didn't get to play all summer long. Like you didn't see Donovan Mitchell playing in scrimmages. You didn't see, James Harden playing in scrimmages like you usually do because they're recovering from injuries. So you see them taking part in one-on-one work or drills. But playing in a game is very different. And when you play in the NBA and you're not 100%, and part of that, by the way, is more mental than physical, I think it takes time to get back to who you are. Because you see Donovan Mitchell, sometimes it looks like he lands a little gingerly and you're like, uh-oh, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm fine. I think there's a lot of that mental toll in how painful that ankle was last year that Don's just not quite simply 100% over.
Yeah.
So I think that takes time. And then you look at a matchup like you have tonight. I think tonight is going to be a very, very difficult night for the Utah Jazz. I mean, this Rockets team, and again, because I have no life, and yeah, frankly, all I do is eat chips and watch NBA games. I've seen a lot of this Houston Rockets team this year, and they are much improved. They are very much improved. And you look at the way they play basketball, Jake, I think the Houston Rockets are going to be a handful for the Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's going to decide this game, and really it's two things. So number one, like I was just saying before, the Utah Jazz ability to shoot the basketball is going to, like to shoot the three ball rather, is going to be a big factor in whether this is a one possession game going to the fourth quarter or a 10-point lead going to the fourth quarter. Okay, so that's number one. But number two, and this, if you're a Jazz fan, is what I'd really be looking for tonight, especially early on when the players are fresh, is how much emphasis are the Rockets putting on pushing the pace and getting up the floor quickly before Rudy gets down to rim protect. Because if you think about it, if you're the Rockets, you know that this Utah Jazz team is better than you, and you know that Rudy Gobert is a fierce rim protector. You know he's someone that you have to deal with. And so what I won't be surprised if tonight the Rockets roll out and they're looking to push the pace and get some easy buckets in transition. I think that the other thing too is like when they're playing half court basketball, like how does Quinn position Rudy to make sure that he can help? How do they play the cat and mouse game of the Houston Rockets wing players being able to get by, Bogey or whoever tends to be playing that position, and how does Gobert get to help? Because that's he's gonna have to help tonight. That's gotta happen tonight, or it's not gonna end well for the Jazz. So I think those are the little games within the game that you got to be looking for, because that ultimately is what's going to decide things. Are the Rockets getting to the rack consistently? Is Rudy consistently putting pressure on them and pushing them out? And are the Utah Jazz shooting the three ball at a high percentage? Because the other night, I think, what did we say they were, like 13 of whatever it was, like 13 of 30
They shot
or something?
30% the other night.
Yeah, so like they didn't shoot well the other night. So they need to shoot well, and they need to play good help defense tonight to win this game.
Yeah, I think if you are the Utah Jazz, you're watching that Rockets Mavericks tape from the other night because I think that's very indicative of who this Houston Rockets team is.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to compete against everybody they play. And if you are on the road at what is it, Toyota Center in Houston,
Yeah.
you're going to have your hands full. And I look at the fact that you get performances out of, really 7 guys on that Rockets team, and not one of them is probably 15 years old. But I mean, you look at like Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah.
I think we don't even know what kind of player he is yet. That's how little we know about Kevin Porter Jr. Because he's played so little basketball because he's a nutcase, frankly.
He is.
But now that you're seeing him kind of calm down emotionally, and he spent his entire summer in New York with Chris Brickley, you're seeing a very, very much improved player. And Kevin Porter Jr., that frankly, I think I look at these guards in Houston and I ask myself, who do the Jazz have to match up? Okay, well, if you look at it, you're probably putting Don on Jalen Green, I would think, right? Well, that's a really tough matchup. Okay, well, now you're probably going to put Mike Conley on Kevin Porter Jr. Hey, that's a very difficult matchup.
And that's not a criticism of Don or Conley. That's literally almost an impossible matchup for anybody in the league right now.
Because I think the thing that's so difficult is you look at Kevin Porter's body. The guy's 6'4", 200 pounds.
Yeah.
But he plays much more physically than that. And you're looking at a guy that's going to give you 14 points and 4 boards a night. Those two guys together are very difficult for the Jazz. And I look at Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert's a better center than Christian Wood is right now.
Yep.
But by how much? On the offensive end, like how much better is he?
Listen, speed is what you're looking for tonight, right? What do we know about this Jazz team? We know that they do well against teams who are a little bit slower and a little bit more methodical, right? The matchup it favors the Jazz more, but then when you're playing a team that's looking to get out in transition and really looking to push the pace, that's not as good of a matchup for the Jazz. And so that's why I say, when we talk about, hey, how well are they going to shoot from 3, think about the repercussion for missing a 3. What does that typically lead to? A long rebound with one pass to get to the other end. And that you can't have that tonight. That you're just not going to be able to stop them. Nobody has shown the ability in the league yet to stop this Houston Rockets team. So again,
they rebound really well.
They do because they're athletic. They can outjump you. So
and they play Tice and Wood together in their starting 5, or they have the last couple of games.
Yeah.
So you're getting a double-double every night out of Wood. Tice, you can take him or leave him. He against the Jazz, he's probably a 10-10 guy. But that's all they need from him to be, because he probably only plays 25 minutes for them.
Right.
And then, you look at Eric Gordon off their bench. He's still an elite 3-point shooter. You look at what you get, from Daniel House Jr. or, DJ Augustine. Like they have depth and they run a lot. So I'm interested to see, because this Jazz team loves to play up-tempo basketball.
Right.
They like to get up and down, because what does that lead to? That leads to open threes. But the question is, how much Jordan Clarkson do we see tonight? Because my guess is you're going to see quite a bit of Jordan Clarkson tonight, I would think, because I think you're going to see less Joe Ingles and less Bojan Bogdanovic tonight.
Yeah.
And I would think that means that you're going to see a lot more rotational players off the bench. I would love to see a lot of Jared Butler. I'd love to see a lot of Jordan Clarkson tonight.
Agreed.
I think a lot of Hassan Whiteside tonight. Like, I think you're going to see them get up and down, because don't forget that you look down the next 5 days, the Bulls and Bucks are waiting for you. So
Yep.
I think tonight's going to be fascinating. If you're going to watch a Jazz game, I would absolutely tell you to make sure you don't miss this game.
Yeah, 6:00,
because it's going to be telling. And again, the number is the Jazz are favored by 9. 222.5 is a number on this game.
Yeah.
I think it goes way over the 222.
Yeah, so this is definitely going to be a high scoring affair. I mean, this is not going to be a defensive matchup. This is a matchup where I would expect, like, don't be surprised tonight if the Jazz take 45, maybe even 53s tonight. Don't be surprised. That's the kind of game you're going to be playing tonight. So that's what I'd be looking for. And I think, again, I know everyone's probably in the comments calling us idiots or not smart, but I'm telling you, this Houston Rockets team is not a cakewalk, man. I know they're not the best team in the league. They're definitely not better than the Jazz, but I think that the athleticism and the ability to get up and down in the NBA is lethal, and it's tough to stop.
Jeremy Bolton's saying he wants to know how many minutes Jaren Hall's going to play tonight.
I'm not sure, man.
I'm kidding.
I'm not sure.
He never said that. He never said that. I made that up.
Oh, you made that up. Okay.
I made that up.
Okay.
You know.
All right.
Cody Strickland says last night almost every game went for the Jazz, but the Timberwolves game. Last night. James Knight said, "Good day, lads. Good day, mate." How about those Lakers, Monty? And your man Monk came up big in the clutch. Well, they melted down last night.
Yeah.
But I think the Lakers are a pretty interesting example of this.
Mm-hmm.
So you backstopped injuries, and now you have an injury in LeBron James, and the second half was maybe the worst half of basketball I've ever seen the Lakers play.
After the street closed Davis.
He was excellent last night.
Mm-hmm.
He was excellent again. Now, again, he was laying on the floor writhing in pain last night because his contact popped out.
That's every day.
You know.
Right.
I'm not allowed to make female body part jokes anymore. But the point is that Anthony Davis was on the floor crying again, but he put up 30 points. Now, this whole thing with Russell Westbrook at the end of the game, you need to get over it. I mean, there was 5 seconds to go. You're up. You're trailing by 5. You throw the ball away, and OKC has every reason to dunk the ball.
Yeah.
You don't want him to dunk the ball. Don't throw a terrible inbound pass. It's just my opinion. James Harden isn't doing well because the change on the rule for him playing plenty. No, there's not. This rule change is not why James Harden's not doing well. And I loved, it was so funny to me. 3 members of the media that cover the Utah Jazz, there was a video of James Harden essentially looking for a foul, and he didn't get it last night.
Mm-hmm.
And these 3 members of the Jazz media tweeted out saying, "Oh, this is such good news. Yeah."
Mm.
And it's like, well, you realize that the Jazz are maybe the worst offenders at complaining to the officials. You understand that, right? Like Rudy Gobert, literally, it was to the point the other night that you have Donovan Mitchell walk up to Rudy Gobert and tell him, hey, you need to calm down, because he's yelling and screaming at the officials on a foul where Rudy absolutely committed the foul.
Yeah.
Without question. Forearm in the back and then a rake of the arm, and you're complaining to the officials.
Yep.
Like, that's the stuff that kills me, right? Does James Harden flop? Yeah, but so does everybody else. I mean, and the thing that kills me is people that pick on James Harden. You don't have to like James Harden. He's a guy that by the end of this year is going to have multiple 40, 35, 45, 50-point games. He's going to figure it out. And if you could have James Harden on your team, you'd absolutely take him.
In a second.
Without even hesitation. If today you could replace James Harden with Mike Conley, or Mike Conley with James Harden, you'd do that in a second. And I'm telling you, like, all of this hate for James Harden, I love it. Because I don't even like James Harden. He's not nearly one of my favorite players.
You've been a noted James Harden hater, for sure.
But you have to respect his game.
Yeah, so here's my thoughts on the new rules. I think I do agree that it is good for the league. I think the league had gotten to a point where a lot of guys were just manufacturing fouls.
I agree.
So like Harden, Curry, KD, like all the best players in the league were doing it, which is why they're the best players in the league, right? They know how to exploit the rules.
Yeah, the Kevin Durant arm swing through.
Yeah, the swing through. And, so you've got, this goes all the way back to Kobe times. I mean, Kobe was notorious for this stuff. So, I just think that, is it good for the league? Yeah, I think it's good for the league. However, I don't think we should be hating on guys, because they're not getting the foul call, or, the whole not this year X player, not this year Steph. Like, the problem is not this year for your team. It's probably just another year for your team. Even though the rules change, your team probably isn't going to win a championship. And that's just the facts of the case. The best players in the league will take over.
There's 2-3 teams in this league every year that can win a championship.
Yeah. So
I just think the James Harden vitriol
people hate him
funny.
because of how Houston ended and because he went to the Nets. That's why people hate him.
I think people hate him because he's very good. And yes, he draws a lot of fouls. I mean, I just don't. I don't know. I think I think the NBA is one of the most difficult sports in the world to officiate.
Yeah.
And I think no matter what, people are going to complain about the officiating. And the best teams in the league have one guy that talks to the officials. The Lakers, LeBron talks to the officials all the time. You don't see 3-4 guys, although it's interesting, Russ last night melting down. I think the Lakers have are a work in progress.
Yeah.
That team it's just going to take time, and having LeBron out of the lineup with this ankle thing is not helping because chemistry-wise, I look at the Phoenix Suns, and I think it's wear and tear. I think it's absolutely miles on the tires as to why the Suns are not playing well. Because Devin Booker looks great.
Yeah. But
Devin Booker's also, a young guy that's in phenomenal shape. So playing in the NBA Finals and then the Olympics and then spending he spent like 45 days doing nothing.
Yeah.
And then he got right back to work.
Which for a body of that caliber is more than enough time.
Yeah. So I think he's playing well. The Suns are not. And a lot of it is Chris Paul has just got no lift right now.
Yeah.
So I think the league is absolutely evolving. But when you look at everybody, like how many people on this show said the Warriors were trash? Well, you might want to go back and rethink that because Steph Curry's playing pretty freaking amazing basketball.
MVP level basketball.
I mean, the hezzy that Devin Booker dropped last night, my God. I mean.
And that's what makes the NBA great. And that's why I say the league is going to get better as the year goes on. And that's why if we take this back to the original question about, better than last year, yes, better than last year. However, everybody else is better than last year too. So at the end of the day, when we look at the record and everyone thinks this team's going to win 55 games, we'll see if that's the case. Are they capable? Absolutely. But also just remember, you've got all these teams like the Clippers and the Nuggets and the Suns and the Lakers and even the Blazers on certain nights that are very good. The Western Conference is deep.
Did you see that three? You probably didn't, but did you see the three that Dame hit last night?
I didn't.
Contested from like 600 feet. The game was over, and he walked out into the parking lot and hit a three. I mean, that guy.
Range.
Yeah. But, I guess Cody Strickland and I will disagree. He says half of Harden's points came from the free throw line, foul shot, and now he needs to play like a real player now to get those points. Okay, well, I'm going to say that no, half his points didn't come from the free throw line. And I'm going to say that when James Harden is missing wide open, like push and teardrops, you can see he's not physically well. Like you can see that he is rusty. And when he's bricking 3-point shots on a regular basis in October, when this is a guy who waits until June to brick 3-point shots, I would tell you that he's not right. And stomping on James Harden's grave is probably not your smartest basketball decision. Because and hey, Cody, you could be right. Maybe I'm an idiot. Not you already know I don't watch Jazz games, right? So
obviously,
what I'm telling you is counting the days until James Harden's dead. It's going to take you a while because the guy is a special player. I'm not a James Harden guy. I'm telling you, he's a special player. Having the problem with the Nets right now is this Kyrie thing is hanging over them. And they are asked about it. Like last night, 2 straight questions. Would you have won this game with Kyrie Irving? And I just don't know what you're waiting for. Trade the guy. You cannot have this thing hanging over your head.
Agreed.
Because you're not going to win games until there's so much drama around the Lakers and the Nets. That's why they're not winning games.
Yeah.
Like talent is never going to be their issue. The Lakers and the Nets are talented than just about every other roster in the league.
Yep.
And they're still not winning games. And it's because of drama. And you can't have drama. Like, this is what we talked about with Russell Westbrook.
Yes.
He's a drama queen.
He is.
He is going to be.
Last night's perfect example.
He is noisy every single day. And it wears on teams. And that's why he hops around the leagues. That's like he tried to convince Bradley Beal to leave Washington. That's why he's not in Washington anymore. Like, we can all tell this cool story about how Russell Westbrook wanted to go home and play for the Lakers. And he legit tried to get Bradley Beal to leave the Washington Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, you just don't. Yeah, he's a problem. But we'll see what happens. I don't know. Jeremy Bolton says, sup, Good to see you alive this morning after honey put you to task yesterday. Yeah, the beating
And
last
as you
night
can
was,
see, I'm going through some shit right
yeah,
now.
like the beating last night was pretty amazing. You know. Let's see. You've been snunked, says Oyo Guisimadi. Okay. I think that
Bro, what are you talking about,
that
man?
means Monty, you're amazing. I agree. You know. Brandon Whiteside says Brickley overrated. Don worked with him and now can't shoot. Hughes worked with him and can't get on the court. Yeah, Chris Brickley's overrated.
Yeah, Don can't shoot. Come on, guy. Come on.
Well, so what
Stop.
was last year with Donovan shooting?
Yeah, because he worked with Brickley last year.
Donovan Mitchell's worked for Chris Brickley for years. So and Elijah Hughes can't get on the floor because he's not better than the guys in front of him. Okay, Elijah Hughes, who are you going to take off the floor to play Elijah Hughes? This is the same conversation we had about Azubuike when everybody was like, "Oh, you guys are idiots. Doak is going to play."
Oh, he's
25 minutes a
dominating
night.
Summer League.
Look at him dunk. Okay, so Elijah Hughes instead of,
Your mom.
because I don't see Elijah Hughes playing instead of anybody right now, because he's not going to get guard minutes. And how are you going to play Elijah Hughes or Joe Ingles? I'm going to play Joe Ingles, an experienced guy that knocks down the three. I'm going to play Joe Ingles. Right? Like, I mean, who? I don't. Anyway. Hi. Greg Hawkins says, howdy, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Good to see you, Greg. Jeremy Bolton says, isn't Clarkson going to be suspended tonight after leaving the bench during the scuffle with Whiteside? I don't know. I saw a lot of that.
Who the hell knows?
But I mean, wouldn't they have made
Yeah,
that decision
that
already?
announcement would have been made already if it was gonna happen.
I mean, unless I missed it, if somebody wants to correct me, please feel free. I haven't.
I don't think that he's suspended. I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, I would think that would have come down already. Just a quick cursory search would tell you that no, he's not suspended. So I would think we would have known about that already, but I could be wrong. Yeah, last night Memphis lost, Clippers lost, Lakers lost, Suns lost, Bucks lost, and Nets lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about going through some mess.
Yeah.
The NBA is going through some mess. James Knight says James Harden's not playing well because he's fat. That could be.
I mean, you may not be wrong.
Yeah. Illert Ginick. Hey, Illert Ginick.
Illert Ginick
Says O'Neal. Okay.
You're saying that you'd play Elijah Hughes instead of Royce O'Neal. Okay. I mean,
I think I would play Trent Forrest instead of Royce O'Neal. Which, by the way, for once, amazing. And just as soon as you think you've seen everything.
Mm-hmm.
And are you going to...
Yeah, dude. It's Thursday. It's been a long week.
You okay?
I'm fine.
Anyway.
Keep going.
Yeah, my bad. When you think you've seen everything, when you think cancer's been cured, when you think that global warming and global hunger's gone, then Jazz fans agree with you that you should play Trent Forrest instead of Royce O'Neal.
Bet you weren't expecting this one.
No, I was not expecting that at all. Like, holy cow. Finally, I feel like, you know what? I feel like I'm vindicated. I feel like a whistleblower who's like finally gotten justice.
Really?
Right? Like, Royce O'Neal sucks. Like, he's just not very good.
So get your facts straight.
Royce O'Neal's very sus.
Donnie,
Yes?
why are you using sus?
Because sus is a great word.
I really don't care if you think it's sus.
Yeah, Royce O'Neal's three-point shot, yeah, it's sus. I'm telling you that Royce O'Neal's overrated. Yeah.
Because it's garbage.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah, it is, but whatever. James Jensen says the defense is salivating at the mouth. They get to play now. Okay. Brandon Whiteside says started listening to the Whistleblower podcast with former ref Tim Donaghy, who's been on our show like thousands of times. Yeah, I know Tim pretty well. Eric C says should be a good game for the Jazz to get back into rhythm. I'm telling you guys, you are undervaluing how difficult it's going to be for the Jazz to go to Houston and win tonight. Like, are we making too much of the Rockets?
I guess we'll find out.